The PlayStation franchise is in quite a predicament at the moment. Right now, it's lost several key exclusives it once had. Well, losing's not quite the word. Many of them are still coming to the PlayStation 3. However, not exclusively on the PlayStation 3. Instead, a few are for both Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, while a few others are only on the Xbox 360. But it wasn't always this way. Let's go back to the PlayStation 1 days. Before we begin, let's go over the two types of exclusives there are. One, there's a regular exclusive. It only appears on one console and that's it. We don't really count the PCs, since they're not consoles. Then secondly, you have timed exclusives. That's when a game debuts first on a machine, and over the course of, let's say, a year, it comes out on another machine. It still is an exclusive, but it also at the same time isn't, so it goes by the name timed exclusive. One thing that made the PlayStation brand a household name is the great games that have graced the system. Many of the hits made the PlayStation worth owning among any of the other consoles' offerings. However, one notable difference between Nintendo's exclusives and Sony's exclusives were most of Nintendo's heavy-hitting exclusives were in-house. That is, developed by Nintendo or a second-party developer under them, meaning many of the IPs had little or no chance of ever leaving Nintendo. This would prove very crucial during the Nintendo 64 days. Many PlayStation exclusives were not owned by Sony. Therefore, the third parties making the games on their systems had the chance to opt out if they so wished. However, since the PlayStation sales were above that of anything else, there was no need to even think of such. Furthermore, the Nintendo 64's limited cartridge format handicapped what games could have been ported over. During the PS1 era, exclusives such as the Final Fantasy series, the Tomb Raider series, and the Metal Gear Solid series, just to name a few, each one selling over 1 million copies and securing the PlayStation's dominance over the market. Namco also debuted with the new flight combat simulator series named Ace Combat. While not too popular in America, it was a huge hit in Japan. At the end of that gen, the PlayStation sold much more than any competitor. In fact, you could take the number of Nintendo 64s and Sega Saturn sold, and double that number, and still not reach the amount of PlayStation units sold. Talk about impressive. In October of 2003, the PlayStation 2, releasing a year earlier than its competitors, gladly picked up where the PlayStation 1 stopped. After Sony made it through its shaky launch period, great games were on their way. Grand Theft Auto 3 was a smash hit, and a big exclusive. It put the PlayStation 3 on the map. Two other entries into the series, Vice City and San Andreas, were exclusive as well, but they were timed exclusives, meaning they debuted on the PlayStation 2 first, but released on the Xbox nearly a year afterwards. A new action game named Devil May Cry made its debut as a PlayStation 2 title exclusively as well, also spawning two more sequels, Devil May Cry 2 and Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening, all of which sold over 1 million copies. Sega fans rejoiced at the return of their beloved Virtua Fighter series as it stomped onto the PlayStation 2 exclusively and sold over 1 million copies with Virtua Fighter 4. Final Fantasy X rose the bar for RPGs when it debuted on the PlayStation 2. It gave gamers a brand new take on Squaresoft's epic Final Fantasy series. It also led the way for a direct sequel entitled Final Fantasy X-2, which picked up where Final Fantasy X left off, a first in Final Fantasy's history. Another addition to the Final Fantasy franchise was the MMORPG Final Fantasy XI and its several expansion packs. Lastly, a sequel to Final Fantasy VII entitled Dirge Cerberus, which was an action shooter game starring Vincent Valentine, also landed on the PlayStation 2. Squaresoft also treaded in other waters with its new collaboration game, Kingdom Hearts, which was a mixture of Disney and Squaresoft characters. An excellent match, the game became multi-platinum, spawning another sequel called Kingdom Hearts 2. The Metal Gear Solid series has made two debuts, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, both of which had re-releases with updates. Sons of Liberty, however, was a timed exclusive and was re-released on the Xbox. Another new series from Capcom, Onimusha, debuted on the PlayStation 2 as well. However, this was a timed exclusive, and over a year later, the original Onimusha was ported to the Xbox. Onimusha 2, 3, and 4 all remain console exclusives to the PlayStation 2. Tekken smashed its way onto the PlayStation 2 at launch with Tekken Tag Tournament, followed by Tekken 4 and Tekken 5, all of which were exclusive to the PlayStation only. Tomb Raider had a sequel that debuted on the PlayStation 2 entitled Angel of Darkness, which was an exclusive. However, the next entry, Tomb Raider Legend, debuted at the same time on Xbox 360 as did the PlayStation 2. The next game, Tomb Raider Anniversary, was a timed exclusive. A few months later, the Xbox and the Wii received a port. Katamari Damacy debuted on the PlayStation 2 as well. This quirky yet addictive game surprisingly sold very well, and at only $20 it was a very good deal. Silent Hill 2, 3, and 4 creeped onto the PlayStation 2 as well. 2 was a timed exclusive and later appeared on Xbox. 3 was never ported and remained an exclusive. Silent Hill 4 The Room debuted on both the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 at the same time. It was an awesome run for the PlayStation 2. Many of these franchises did not need to be ported to other machines since the sales of the PlayStation 2 alone were enough. All was not exactly well. Sony did lose one big exclusive that it once had. Capcom, maker of the Resident Evil series, chose not to release the next-gen Resident Evil titles on the PlayStation 2 first. The first next-gen Resident Evil, Code Veronica, actually went to the Dreamcast first. It was then ported to the PlayStation 2 later. After that, Capcom made a bold decision to develop their upcoming Resident Evil titles exclusively for the Nintendo GameCube. The end result? 3 Resident Evil games appear on the GameCube. The first, a remake of the original Resident Evil. The next game was Resident Evil 0, which takes place before the original Resident Evil. Last but not least, Resident Evil 4. Sales were below expectation, and Capcom had no choice but to port Resident Evil 4 to the PlayStation 2. Nearly a year later, with updates and additions, Capcom also made a new online-oriented experience by the name of Outbreak. Players worked together to try and escape a now-infested Raccoon City alive. A sequel, Outbreak File 2, furthermore expands on the game with several new additions. In this generation, games like Onimusha, Metal Gear Solid, and Resident Evil all made appearances on other machines. However, this was all timed exclusives, and the sales on the other platforms did not meet the expectations of the developers. Silent Hill, Tomb Raider, and Grand Theft Auto, however, did sell very well on the Xbox. The experiment with other consoles with Sony exclusives usually ended up in fair to poor sales, again cementing the PlayStation's dominance over the GameCube and the Xbox. At the end of that gen, the GameCube sold 22 million units, while the Xbox sold 24 million units worldwide. The PlayStation 2, however, sold 120 million units, meaning if you took the GameCube numbers and Xbox numbers and equaled them together and doubled it, you still wouldn't reach the amount of PlayStation 2 sold. You'd almost have to triple it just to reach it. Once again, the PlayStation franchise shows its sheer dominance over the market. Both the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 were pioneers of both generations, meaning they released very early. Because they released early on in the generation, they were able to get a foothold on the market before their competition released. However, this time around, Microsoft knew that was a key in Sony's strategy, so they opted to release the Xbox 360 a year earlier than the PlayStation 3. This proved to be a crucial yet critical move by Microsoft.